Hello, everyone, and welcome to At Barrons. I'm Andy Serwer, and welcome to our guest, John Doyle, CEO of Marsh McLennan. John, great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Andy. It's good to meet you.
So you just did a big acquisition, McGriff Insurance, for $7.75 billion reportedly. Tell us about that.
It's an exciting opportunity for us, Andy. It's a business that I've known a long time, admired a long time, 3,500 colleagues in the United States, primarily in the Southeast and in the southern part of the U.S. and out west a bit. It expands our presence into the middle market. They bring deep industry and specialty capabilities to their clients. And so it's a terrific opportunity for us to, again, extend our reach into the middle market, which we really like a lot. It's a big part of our business and a fast growing part of our business. And we can bring scale benefits to that client set. And so we're excited about the possibility. We just closed on November 15th. So we're just beginning to discover all the possibilities.
Marsh McLennan has 4 different businesses, which we'll get to, but this is the insurance brokerage business, right? So
that's right. We have
expanding
an
that?
agency business in the United States that's primarily focused at the middle market. And then Marsh as well focuses on upper middle market and larger multinationals all over the world.
And you're the biggest player in that specific industry. And it's a great business. I mean, why is that such a good business, John?
Well, it's a terrific business for a lot of reasons. And I would start with the purpose behind our business, which is enabling our clients to have the confidence to thrive through our perspectives, right? So we're critical to economic growth. Not much happens in the world without insurance underpinning investment. And so it starts right there. So it's quite a resilient business. And we can help clients see risks, manage and mitigate risks, and then, if necessary, approach insurance companies or other investors to finance risks on their part. And that's just part of our business. We have a broader suite of capabilities that are more focused on opportunity, if you will.
Right. So let's talk about the other parts of the company. There's Guy Carpenter, Mercer, Oliver Wyman. Tell us about each one of those.
Sure. So, and one of the things that makes us unique is that collection of businesses, right? So we have a breadth and depth to our business that's different than others in the marketplace. So Guy Carpenter is also in the risk business. Now it helps insurance companies think about risk as it aggregates on the liability side of its balance sheet. So a critical business, and in many ways an enabler to what we're trying to accomplish for our retail clients at Marsh and MMA. So an important collection of capabilities for us there. And then Mercer is an HR consulting and human capital firm. So we help manage health and benefits. Obviously, it's a competitive market for talent. And so businesses need to think about their collection of benefits and how they can attract and retain talent, finance health risk as well. But they also think about workforce changes, right? And there's been a lot of change, of course, in workforces all over the world coming out of the pandemic. And so that's an important capability we have as well. And then Oliver Wyman is a market-leading strategy consulting firm. And so when you stitch it all together, our ability to impact our clients is unmatched.
Let me ask you about that stitching together. I mean, did these businesses, companies really fit together? Are there synergies? Can you leverage off it? Is there a flywheel? You know, those kinds of things.
Yeah, it's a great question. And, you know, the world's changed a lot, you know, over the course of the last decade. It's certainly, you know, in my career as a business leader, the complexity that businesses are confronting is greater than it's ever been. You know, whether it's geopolitical risk, the economic uncertainty, rapid developments in technology, and all that comes with that great opportunity, but also massive risks as well. Climate, right? Extreme weather, frequency of extreme weather events, right? All of these things businesses are thinking and confronting at just a much more challenging rate than they have in the past. And so our ability to stitch together and bring together and deliver the full suite of capabilities we have and impact a client's success is really one of the things that sets us apart in the market.
Yeah, I mean, never mind managing people. That is also more complicated as well.
Yeah, labor markets are healthy. You know, I would say, you know, a lot's changed coming out of the pandemic, both what talent is looking for, but also how big business is confronting some of the changes that we've all been living through over the course of the last decade. And so But it's a big opportunity in an area where we can bring insight and perspective to businesses to help them compete.
Now, you got rid of the "and" with Marsh and McLennan. What was that about?
Well, that was part of the stitching it together,
Okay.
right? I think our history goes back many, many years. And for a long time, we operated as a holding company. That's not been the case for several decades. But there's no question there's real synergy and possibility at the intersections of our businesses. And so we're working more closely together today than we ever have.
Yeah, I want to ask a little bit about that history, John. But first, I want to ask about the insurance protection gap. And, let's just take weather and the climate threat that you mentioned with hurricanes and in Europe and Spain, the flooding. What are the challenges there?
Well, they're human tragedies, first and foremost, Andy. I mean, what happened in Valencia, Spain is absolutely tragic. The protection gap there, as it relates to insurance, is actually much less than what has happened here in the Southeast United States with Helene and Milton. And you might not expect that, right? But in Spain, there's actually a public-private partnership. And so businesses and homeowners buy insurance. There's a mandatory element to that. And so there's an effective risk financing program that's in place there. It's going to take a long time for Valencia to recover. As it relates to the storms here more recently in the United States, it's, again, absolutely tragic what happened here. That headlines around extreme weather in the United States tend to be around hurricanes, maybe more recently wildfire. One of the things that set these storms apart, though, is massive amounts of inland flooding, where there's a big, big protection gap. So here you have the biggest economy in the world, by most standards, the wealthiest economy in the world, and yet a massive amount of risk, went uninsured. And so it's an opportunity for us as a business, not just for us, for our entire industry. And, the way I think of it, there's a gap between what we should be doing for economic resilience. I would say we have a wide range of tools that can help local economies, municipalities, and businesses and individuals manage these risks. Not long ago, we actually worked with the Center for New York City Neighborhoods here and put together a parametric insurance program that helps finance the risk of flooding here in New York City. And so that's an example of the kind of solutions that we can bring to the marketplace. But getting back to our collection of businesses, just to give you an example of how things have changed and how the risk world has changed. So since our business was started in 1871, we've been financing property-related risks, fire, right, for example. And so for all 153 years, we've been helping clients think about that. But what's really changed with the increased frequency and severity of extreme weather is it's not just the asset that our clients are worried about. It's like, wait a minute, what about the business interruption risk as it relates to extreme weather exposure? And then, wow, I'm facing supply chain risk as well. And so the conversation has changed from, hey, Marsh, can you go out and help us buy efficient risk financing in the event of a hurricane or fire or whatever might cause the loss, to we need to much better understand the broader collection of risks that come with what's happening from a weather perspective.
Right, and how they're all connected and to the various facets of risk that you described, John. And I'm curious, another thing people are concerned about that's very topical is technology, cyber risk. And how do companies even begin, or you as an insurer, how do you wrap your brain around something that's constantly evolving? The bad guys keep getting more and more tools and getting ahead.
Well, it's an example where our scale creates some advantage for us in the marketplace. And so we're the largest advisor around cyber risk and cyber insurance in the marketplace. We've been at it for about 25 years now. Now, of course, the conversation's evolved quite a bit over the course of the last decade, as exposure has grown so significantly. But there's a lot that we can learn from past events, but we need to get ahead of it as well. And so we do a lot of work, modeling, scenario planning, certain scenarios around certain types of events and what they may mean to our businesses, but also what they may mean to local economies and markets. I'm quite worried about the protection gap in cyber as it relates to systemic events, and I think we're poorly prepared for that.
What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, I think if a power grid, were to come down, for example, or an attack that just went after critical infrastructure, what that could mean. And so there's some financing for that in the insurance market, but insurers are rightly concerned about how those types of events might aggregate on their balance sheets. And so, they need to be able to respond for the commitments that they make. And so I spent a fair amount of time in Washington and with other governments around the world thinking through public-private partnerships. So think, for example, the program we have in place in the United States around terrorism risk. We can create a partnership that will enable us to better finance or have a plan to better finance and be better prepared for these kinds of risks on a go-forward basis rather than waiting until an event happens.
Maybe a risk that's sort of adjacent to what you were just describing is geopolitical. And there's always been wars. Are things different now than in previous decades?
Well, I mean, we have a couple of major wars happening, at the moment, obviously, and again, tragic, those events. But, as it relates to our industry and what we can do and what our company can do is really support economic resilience during time of war. So we've been working very closely with the Ukraine government, for example. The shipment of grain through the Black Sea was immediately cut off when the war began a couple of years ago. And so we were able to work again with government here in the United States, with governments across Europe and with Ukraine to put together an efficient risk management program and insurance risk transfer program to enable shipping to happen again and grain to move through the Black Sea, critical to Ukraine's economic resilience, also critical to food security in other parts of the world. And now we've expanded that program to other commodities as well. And so there's a role that we have to play, around war-like events where, again, we can help sustain economic performance during those times. But it's not just the two wars, of course. You've got governments all over the world with increasingly isolationist policies. And so our clients need to think through what those policies mean to their businesses. We need to be helping them with scenario planning. We need big businesses to be more agile than they typically are. So we saw in the case, for example, of the Ukraine war, a lot of business pulled from Russia. You need to be prepared for those kinds of events today and need to be able to move quickly. And so we can help clients think those scenarios through.
And speaking of national policies, I guess that would lead to the next question, which is, we have a new administration coming in, and I'm wondering if you're anticipating any changes in regulatory oversight, policies, et cetera, that might impact your thinking about your business.
Well, I think that the most immediate thing for us as a business, as an American company, is tax, and that's obviously on the agenda for 2025. And so, we're looking to engage with the new administration and with government in Washington to have a competitive tax system for American business. Some of our largest competitors have a tax advantage over us, and so we want to make sure we can continue to compete. And so that's critical. As it relates to regulation, we'll see. I mean, I think also for us, we've built value. We talked about McGriff earlier, largest deal in our history. We've built value by acquiring businesses over time as well. And so, a friendlier M&A environment I expect as well.
You mentioned, John, the company's over 150 years old. My understanding is came in the wake of the Great Chicago Fire in 1871. How have you adapted? This is before your time, but how's the company adapted over the years? Is it just luck? Is there culture? What do you think?
Yeah, it's really a remarkable story when you think about it. We're 153 years old and thriving. We really are. And, again, I think we've done a terrific job over time building capabilities, balancing, delivering performance for our investors, which were private for much of that time, but public for over 60 years now, but balancing investment in capabilities that can help us deliver over the medium to long term with delivering in the now. We've done that, I think, exceptionally well. Mm-hmm. And of course, as risk has evolved and the risk landscape has evolved, we've invested in the capabilities that help our clients be successful.
You talked about being private and then public. The stock has been a pretty stellar long-term performer, lagged a little bit maybe over the past couple of years. I'm wondering what you attribute both the long-term performance to, and then the lagging versus the S&P 500 a little bit more
No,
recently?
our performance has been good. I mean, we're since 2010, we're 2x the TSR.
Maybe it's just the past year or so with interest rates. Or
Year to
you
date,
tell me about it.
Yeah, look, I think when we are a resilient business, right, and we perform effectively through economic cycles, political cycles, and that track record of performance, I think, stands out with investors. So our TSR since 2010 is 2x the S&P 500, and we're quite proud of that. There might be moments where certain tech stocks are rising kind of much more quickly, but no, we're quite proud of our performance. This will be 2024 will be the 17th consecutive year, as an example, where we've expanded our margins. So we managed to grow revenue each and every year organically and continue to invest, not just deliver in the near term, but invest what we need to do to deliver over the medium and long term.
And why should investors buy the stock or hold on to the stock going forward, John?
Yeah, I think that consistency is certainly attractive to many of the investors that are in our stock today, and investors that I talk to about buying Marsh McLennan. But what I also talk about again is the importance that we are to the economy, and help them understand how critical we are and underpin economic growth all over the world. And while GDP growth might be moderating in many major markets, although I do think economies have been really remarkably resilient coming out of such a period of volatility, and central banks now easing after a period of inflation, the cost of risk is rising. So we talked about it, right? Geopolitical risk, frequency and severity of weather, technology risk and opportunity, labor market risks and challenges. And so the cost of risk is rising at a pace higher than GDP is.
Yeah, I mean, although some people have described this as sort of a Goldilocks time in terms of risk, and then there's more risk on the horizon. Or do you think about it in those terms?
Well, there's no question. There is inflation in the risks that we help our clients manage, right? And then again, back to weather, there's a frequency, an increase to frequency to weather. We've had wildfires here, Andy, in New York City, right? Who I can't remember that in my lifetime. I'm not sure about you, but really incredible events that are happening like that. Technology risks, right, that continue to evolve, but also some of the risks that we've helped clients manage for quite a long time. The cost to resolve many of these types of risks has escalated quite a bit coming out of the pandemic.
One risk we didn't talk about is longevity and retirement systems being sort of under strain. Is that something that concerns you as well?
Well, it is, broadly speaking for the economy, but we're, helping our clients think through how they can help their employees manage retirement risk and the possibilities around retirement. Now, we do that all over the world. We have the benefit of seeing different types of systems in other economies around the world, and we can bring those perspectives to our clients and help them manage that risk. But there's no question, with longevity increasing, the need to be prepared to finance that risk is quite real. And so, but we're working aggressively with our clients to help their employees get in front of that.
And final question, John, as the CEO of a company that manages risk, what do you think about risk when it comes to your personal life? Do you like to engage in risky sports? Are you conservative when it comes to investing? Does that influence your thinking at all?
I am not a risky investor at all, and I'm old, Andy, so I'm taking less risk. Probably the riskiest thing I do in my personal life is ski. I love to ski, but I also like to think I take calculated risks out there. But no, it's the risk environment is real, and we don't just confront it as businesses or as societies or nations. We need to confront these things as people too, and we have cyber risk ourselves, right? For example, and so I certainly try to learn from my experience at work and manage my personal risks as best I can.
A lot to think about. John Doyle, CEO of Marsh McLennan, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Andy. Thank you.
This is At Barrons. I'm Andy Serwer. We'll catch you next time.